My name is Mackenzie, and I was 13 when it happened at Riverside Middle School in Salem, Oregon. October 23rd started like any other Tuesday. I remember because we just gotten our English essays back, and I was annoyed that I'd only gotten a B+. Mrs. Patterson had written, "Good effort, but dig deeper" in red ink across the top, and I kept staring at it during class, mentally rewriting my conclusion. It was a gray, drizzly afternoon, typical for Oregon in fall, the kind of weather that makes you want to curl up with hot chocolate and forget about homework. Our classroom smelled like old books and the vanilla air freshener Mrs. Patterson kept on her desk. Someone had drawn a tiny smiley face on the corner of the whiteboard that she hadn't noticed yet. I was sitting in the third row, doodling in my notebook margins, when everything changed. 1:17 p.m. Principal Morrison's voice crackled through the intercom, and I knew immediately something was wrong. In 3 years at Riverside, I'd never heard him sound like that, shaky, breathless, like he'd just run up a flight of stairs. Students and staff, initiate a full lockdown immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The room exploded into motion. Mrs. Patterson's face went completely white. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the key in the door lock. She knocked over her coffee mug in her rush to hit the light switch, sending cold coffee spreading across her desk and dripping onto the floor. The fluorescent lights went dark. Behind the bookshelf. "Now!" she whispered, her voice cracking. Not a sound. Not a single sound. 23 of us crammed into the corner behind the tall bookshelf, a space meant for maybe 10 people at most. I was pressed so tightly against Jordan Hayes that I could feel his heart pounding through his shirt. Alyssa Chin was on my other side, her fingernails digging into my arm so hard I'd find crescent-shaped bruises there later. Some kids thought it might still be a drill. "Maybe they're just testing how we react," whispered Ethan, but then he saw Mrs. Patterson's face, truly saw it, and went silent. That's when we heard the footsteps. Heavy, slow, dragging slightly, like someone was limping or deliberately taking their time. They echoed through the empty hallway, getting closer. My whole body went rigid. The sound was wrong somehow, too deliberate, too measured. The footsteps stopped right outside our door. Complete silence. Not the comfortable silence of a classroom during a test. This was different. This was a kind of silence where you become hyper-aware of every single sound. The buzzing of the old wall clock, someone's stomach gurgling, the rain pattering against the windows. Then came a new sound that made my blood run cold. Metal scraping against metal. Long, slow, deliberate. Like someone dragging a crowbar along the row of lockers outside our classroom. It was the most horrible sound I'd ever heard. A grinding, shrieking scrape that seemed to go on forever. Screech, screech, screech. The doorknob rattled. Jordan's hand found mine in the darkness and squeezed so hard my fingers went numb. Across from me, I could see Tyler's face in the dim light coming from under the door, and he was crying silently, tears streaming down his cheeks. Then I heard breathing, long, low, deliberate breaths from just outside the door, like whoever was out there was listening, waiting for one of us to make a sound, to give ourselves away. I clamped my hand over my mouth, terrified that even my breathing was too loud. A shadow appeared in the crack beneath the door, not standing, bending down. Someone was crouching, looking underneath, trying to see if anyone was inside. The doorknob turned again, harder this time, more insistent. The locked door held, but a handle kept twisting, jerking back and forth with increasing violence. Then, slam. The sound of something crashing into a locker was so loud, so sudden, that several of us gasped. Alyssa bit down on her own hand to keep from screaming. I felt warm tears streaming down my face. The footsteps continued down the hallway, slow and steady, fading gradually but never quite disappearing. Each step echoed through my chest like a second heartbeat. We stayed frozen in that corner for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of barely breathing, of muscles cramping, of pure terror. Mrs. Patterson never moved from her position in front of us, like she could somehow shield 23 kids with her body if it came to that. When the police finally arrived and gave the all clear, we learned the truth. A man had broken into the school. He wasn't a parent. He wasn't a former student. He was someone who had no reason to be there, no connection to anyone. He'd entered through a side door that had been left propped open by a delivery person. He had no gun, no knife, but he had a crowbar. And in his backpack, police found rope, duct tape, zip ties, and a notebook. I never saw what was written in that notebook, but I overheard Officer Brennan tell Principal Morrison that it was deeply disturbing and detailed plans. They never told us what those plans were. I'm not sure I want to know. I'm 17 now, and I still can't hear the sound of metal scraping metal without my heart racing. Sometimes at night, I hear it in my dreams, that long, slow screech of the crowbar dragging across the lockers. Screech, screech, screech. And I wonder what would have happened if that door hadn't been locked. My name is Dylan, and I was 16 when it happened at Summit Ridge High School in Boulder, Colorado. I joined choir on a whim freshman year because my guidance counselor said I needed more extracurriculars for college applications. Turned out I actually loved it. There was something about being part of something bigger than yourself, all those voices blending together into harmony. December 18th was supposed to be our last rehearsal before winter break. We were preparing for the annual holiday concert, and Mr. Reeves, our choir director, was a perfectionist who insisted on one more evening practice to tighten up our transitions. Only 12 of us showed up that night. Most students had already left for break or couldn't make it because of the weather. A massive snowstorm had been forecasted, and fat white flakes were already falling heavily outside the tall windows of the music wing. The school felt different at night, quieter, emptier, almost haunted. Our footsteps echoed differently in the hallways. The hallway lights seemed dimmer than usual, casting long shadows that stretched across the polished floors. By 6:30 p.m., it was fully dark outside. Snow was piling up fast, at least 6 inches already. Mr. Reeves kept glancing at his phone, checking the weather updates, debating whether to cancel early. Most of the teaching staff had gone home. Besides us, there was only Mr. Reeves and Warren, the night janitor. We were in the middle of silent night, ironically, when it happened. Bang! The sound was so loud, so violent, that everyone jumped. Emma Cote, our soprano section leader, actually screamed. It echoed through the entire music wing, reverberating off the walls. "What was that?" someone whispered. "Probably just something falling in the..." Mr. Reeves started, but then we heard it again. Bang! This wasn't something falling. This wasn't a door slamming. This was sharper, more explosive. It sounded exactly like a gunshot. Mr. Reeves's face changed instantly. Instrument storage room. Now, move! We scrambled through the door into a cramped storage room filled with timpani drums, music stands, and instrument cases. Mr. Reeves locked the door behind us and immediately started pushing a large filing cabinet in front of it. "Everyone stay quiet. Get down. Now." We huddled together between the drums and the back wall. Someone was crying. I think it was Olivia, one of the freshmen. My hands were shaking so badly I had to shove them in my pockets. There were no announcements, no instructions crackling over the intercom, no lockdown alert, just silence and the sound of snow hitting the windows. I pulled out my phone to text my mom. My hands were trembling so much I could barely type. Something's wrong at school. I think gunshots. We're hiding. I love you. Carson tried calling 911, but the signal was terrible in the storage room. He kept moving around, holding his phone up, trying to find one bar of service. That's when we heard it through the vents. The heating system at Summit Ridge was ancient, installed sometime in the 1970s, and sound traveled through those metal ducts in strange ways. You could sometimes hear conversation from classrooms 3 doors down. But this wasn't a conversation. It was breathing. Deep, heavy, deliberate breathing that echoed to the vents like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Inhale, long and slow. Exhale, even and measured. Inhale, exhale. It was too loud to be normal, too rhythmic, too purposeful. What the hell is that? Lucas whispered. Then came the laughter. I've heard a lot of laughter in my life. Joyful, nervous, sarcastic. This was none of those. This was a low, broken cackle that sounded wrong, like it was being filtered through water or coming from a damaged speaker. It seemed to bounce around the vents, coming from multiple directions at once. Emma grabbed my arm, so hard I lost feeling in my fingers. We could hear Warren outside, trying to be brave. His footsteps echoed through the hallway, slow and cautious. Through the crack under the door, we could see the beam of his flashlight moving past. Then we heard Warren's voice, distant but clear enough. "Sir? Sir, you can't be in here. The school is closed." A pause. "Sir, I need you to stop right there." Another pause, longer this time. Then Warren's footsteps, faster now, almost running back toward us. He didn't say anything, but I heard him talking urgently into his phone. Later, Warren told police what he'd seen, a man in a thick winter coat walking with a strange, erratic limp, dragging something across the floor. Warren couldn't see what it was. The hallway was too dark, but the man was muttering to himself, repeating the same phrase over and over in a sing-song voice. "Where are they hiding? Where are they hiding? Where are they hiding?" We waited in that storage room for 38 minutes before police arrived. When they finally cleared the building, they found a broken emergency exit door at the back of the school. The glass had been shattered from the inside. Snow had blown in, creating a small drift on the hallway floor. In the snow, there were footprints, large boots, size 12 or 13. They led from somewhere deep inside the school to the broken door, and then outside, disappearing into the storm. They never found who made them. There were no shell casings, no weapon, no explanation for the sounds we'd heard. The working theory was that someone had been violently slamming doors to try to draw students out, to make us run or reveal our locations. The only evidence left behind was those footprints and a single black glove, soaked in melted snow, lying in the middle of the hallway. I'm 19 now, in college, but I still can't hear rhythmic breathing without feeling my chest tighten. And sometimes late at night in my dorm, I hear that laughter echoing through the vents, even though I know it's impossible. Where are they hiding? Where are they hiding? I graduated from Summit Ridge, but I never went back to that music wing. My name is Chloe, and I was 11 when it happened at Lincoln Elementary in Dayton, Ohio. I loved art club. It was my favorite part of the week. Every Wednesday after school, a small group of us would stay late with Ms. Kelly to work on projects. She was the sweetest teacher in the school, the kind who always had Band-Aids and crackers in her desk, who remembered your birthday and let you pick a prize from the treasure box. April 12th was warm and sunny, one of those perfect spring days where you could finally feel winter loosening its grip. The trees outside were budding with new green leaves, and someone had opened the windows in the art room to let in fresh air that smelled like cut grass and flowers. There were 7 of us that day: me, Bryn, Owen, Sienna, Liam, Isla, and Nolan. We were working on clay sculptures, our hands covered in gray slip, laughing about something stupid Owen had said at lunch. The final bell had rung at 3:15. The buses had left. The school was mostly empty, except for a few teachers in their classrooms grading papers and Coach Henderson in the gym. At exactly 3:22 p.m., the fire alarm went off. The sudden blaring made us all jump. Clay flew off Bryn's sculpture as she jerked in surprise. But something felt wrong immediately. Fire drills were always scheduled, always announced, and they never happened during after-school activities. Miss Kelly's smile disappeared. She stood up quickly, wiping her hands on her apron, and walked to the door. When she opened it and looked into the hallway, her whole body went rigid. The emergency lights were flashing red, pulsing to the hallway in rhythm with the alarm. But there was no smoke, no smell of burning, no heat, nothing. "Stay right there," she told us, her voice tight. The classroom phone rang, the old-fashioned kind mounted on the wall with a coiled cord. Miss Kelly answered it, and I watched her face change. All the color drained away. She didn't even say goodbye, just hung up and immediately turned to us. "We need to lock down. Right now. Corner. Move." Her voice was different, harder, scared in a way I'd never heard from an adult before. Miss Kelly was always calm, always warm. This wasn't her. We scrambled to the corner farthest from the door and windows. Miss Kelly shut off the lights, locked the door, and then, to my shock, started pushing the big storage shelf in front of it. It was heavy, filled with art supplies and boxes, and she grunted with effort as it scraped across the floor. "What's happening?" Isla asked, her voice shaking. "Shoo!" Complete silence. "Do you understand?" Complete silence. We nodded, huddling together. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Bryn found my hand and held it tight. That's when the tapping started. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. The sound of knuckles or something hard striking the concrete wall outside our classroom. It was moving, getting closer, like someone was counting the rooms as they walked down the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. "I saw someone," Sienna suddenly whispered. "Earlier, in the parking lot when we came in. A tall man in a hoodie. He was just standing there when..." Miss Kelly whispered back, "Like, when we got here at 3:15, I thought he was waiting for someone." Tap, tap, tap. The sound was closer now, almost at our door. Miss Kelly pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her fingers trembling, holding the phone close to her mouth so she could whisper. The tapping stopped, right outside our door. Complete silence except for the muffled sound of the fire alarm, still going in other parts of the building. 7 kids barely breathing. Miss Kelly, frozen with the phone, pressed her ear. Then a whisper, a voice on the other side of the door, soft and almost gentle. "I know you're in there." Isla started crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Owen squeezed his eyes shut. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like someone was standing on my chest. The doorknob moved, slowly, deliberately, turning left, testing the lock, then right, then shaking, jerking violently. The storage shelf pushed forward an inch, then another inch. Someone was pushing from the other side, trying to move it. Ms. Kelly dropped the phone and threw her whole body against the shelf, pushing back. "Don't move," she mouthed to us. "Stay completely still." The doorknob stopped moving. Silence. Then footsteps, walking away, fading down the hallway. But we didn't move. Miss Kelly stayed pressed against that shelf, and we stayed frozen in the corner for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. When police arrived and cleared the building, they searched everywhere. Every classroom, every closet, every bathroom, the cafeteria, the gym, the basement. Nothing. No intruder. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints on our doorknob. Nothing. But when they checked the security camera footage from the parking lot, they found something that still makes my skin crawl. At 3:21 p.m., exactly 1 minute before the fire alarm went off, a tall figure in a dark hoodie walked toward the main entrance. He was clearly visible, walking purposefully toward the double doors. But the doors never opened. The figure just disappeared. One frame he was there, walking toward the entrance. The next frame he was gone, not around the corner, not off camera, just gone, like he'd stepped straight through the doors without opening them. The police had no explanation. The footage wasn't corrupted. The timestamp was accurate. The figure was there, and then he wasn't. They interviewed everyone. Staff, students, parents picking up kids. No one saw anyone matching that description inside the building. I'm 14 now, and I still think about that day. About the whisper especially. Because here's the thing that nobody talks about. The thing that still wakes me up at night. The voice didn't sound quite right. It sounded like it was layered somehow, like more than one person was speaking at the exact same time, their voices overlapping slightly, creating this weird echo effect. I know you're in there. It didn't sound entirely human. These stories are real. They happen to real students in real schools. Mackenzie, Dylan, and I, we're just 3 of thousands who experienced lockdowns that went beyond drills, that crossed over into genuine terror. Lockdowns are designed to protect us. And maybe they did. Maybe those locked doors and quick thinking saved our lives. But they also left us with something else. Memories that don't fade. Sound that echo in our minds years later. A kind of hypervigilance that never quite goes away. We survived. We're okay. But we're also different. And sometimes in quiet moments, we still hear those sounds. The crowbar scraping. The breathing in the vents. The whisper at the door. And we remember, stay safe. Stay aware. And if you're ever in a lockdown, real or drill, take it seriously, because you never know which one it's going to be.